And joining us now from London is Amnesty's Iran researcher, Raha Bahreini. Thanks very much for your time there, Raha. Now, there's been a concern around the general surge in drug-related executions. In the investigations, the Iranian criminal justice system, why did Amnesty choose to focus on juvenile detainees?
Hi, thank you for your invitation. Well, Amnesty International opposes the death penalty under all circumstances as a cruel and inhumane punishment. However, the use of death penalty against individuals who were under the age of 18 at the time of committing a crime is additionally and particularly cruel, given that these people were basically minors at the time of the crime. And there is international universal consensus that the use of death penalty against those who were under the age of 18 at the time of the crime is absolutely prohibited. Iran has in fact ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child over 2 decades ago, which puts an absolute prohibition on the use of death penalty against juvenile offenders. However, after 2 decades of ratifying this convention, the country continues to execute juvenile offenders and also keep scores of young people on death row for crimes committed when they were children, and this is shameful, and it shows Iran's lack of regard for the rights of children.
So according to the UN, 160 juvenile offenders are currently on death row. Can you walk us through the conviction process? Why are the numbers so high?
Yes, these are actually minimum numbers because researching the situation of death penalty in Iran is always challenging, as the Iranian authorities are not transparent about the use of death penalty overall, and they have attempted in all these years to conceal their abuses of children's rights in the country. Nevertheless, the UN has released a figure of 160, and in this report we have been able to identify the names and location of 49 juvenile offenders. These are people who have been in prison from the age of 15 or 16, and they have effectively grown up on death row all these years. Some recent changes to the country's penal code raised hopes that the situation of these people would finally improve. However, tragically, we are seeing that they are being once again resentenced to death after judges have concluded that they were mature at the time. And this is because Iran continues to maintain laws that allow girls as young as 9 years old and boys as young as 15 years old to be sentenced to death. This is in violation of international obligations that require Iran to treat all people under the age of 18 as children.
Okay, and Raha, just very quickly, is there any hope for reform in Iran? And if so, what are the steps that they need to take?
Well, Iran has celebrated as major advances these changes to the penal code that give judges discretion to replace the death penalty with an alternative punishment. However, Amnesty International shows in the report that these reforms are far from being a cause for celebration. The Iranian authorities must accept that what they need to do is to commute the death sentences of all juvenile offenders and adopt laws that categorically prohibit the use of death penalty against juvenile offenders. As Iran enters the international world of diplomacy, Amnesty International is calling on world leaders to raise concern about the situation of juvenile offenders who are identified in the report. And also we are hoping that by having a long period of campaigning for these juvenile offenders who are identified in the report, Amnesty International supporters and activists around the world will take action to save the lives of these juvenile offenders and on death row, and speed up a day when no one is condemned to the gallows anymore for a crime that they committed when they were a child.
Okay, Rahan, thanks very much for your time.